Starting a new painting is always an exciting day for me. I've usually had the idea and image in my mind for months before I'm able to actually paint it. For example, I bought the giant emoji beach ball for this painting over a year ago. I set the props up in my studio and I used my laptop screen and a couple printouts for reference for the figure. I start with a charcoal drawing on the canvas to place the figure and work out the big proportions. It's much easier to move things around in charcoal rather than paint. This painting is my interpretation of Atlas. I'd been toying with the idea of Atlas for a while, but I wasn't sure what I wanted my version to be holding. When I found these giant emoji beach balls, the painting suddenly came together, particularly the laughing emoji. It just made sense. She looks very cubist at this point. It's hard to say exactly why I'm drawn to certain subject matter. It often starts by finding a costume or inflatable toy that I think is fun, but there also needs to be a concept that I find interesting. This is my third painting that's inspired by Greek mythology. I've previously painted Daphne and Circe. One of the things I like about pop art is how it incorporates elements from culture and everyday life that people already have some connection with. Greek mythology isn't exactly super contemporary culture, but it is something that we all still share. Most of us had to study the myths in school and are familiar with the characters and their stories. I like painting subjects that people will recognize, but in a way they wouldn't necessarily have expected to see them. One of the benefits of being a relatively slow painter is I usually come up with another 2 or 3 ideas for painting before finishing the one I'm working on. So I've ended up with a never-ending list of sketches for new work. Some of the ideas I lose interest in, but the ones I keep coming back to and getting excited about are the ones I know to pursue. Once I have the composition sketched out in charcoal, I do a rough block in with acrylic paint. I use acrylic paint for the first layer simply because it dries much faster than oil. This way, I don't waste time waiting for the underpainting to dry, and it prevents a bit of sinking in later on. The point of this underpainting is just to cover the canvas quickly with approximately the right color, so I have something to build on when I start painting for real with the oil paint. This is all going to be covered up, so it's not the time to get caught up with trying to be super accurate. The background is gray, that'll do. The emoji is yellow, we'll take it straight out of the tube. I'm just blocking in the whole image with big, flat masses of color. This is a nice relaxing day for me, as there aren't many decisions to make. I'm happy with the drawing I did yesterday, so I'm just filling it in. This is really the only day I can paint on autopilot, so I make the most of it. I usually put on a fun movie or TV show that would otherwise be too distracting to work to. Although there are some TV series that help me relax and focus because I've seen them a million times, so I enjoy listening to those while I work. Acrylic block-in day always makes me want brownies. I should really stop using the baking tray as a palette.
We have this helmet cam for you.
Oh, fantastic. I'll try to move gracefully so it's not like Toad's Wild Ride for you guys. I'm starting with my oil paints now. This is my palette. I lightly oil it every morning before setting out my colors. It's not your typical palette shape. I had it custom made so it would take the shape of a lop-eared bunny. Scientifically proven to be the best shape. The colors I use are titanium white, yellow ochre deep, Windsor lemon, cadmium yellow, Windsor red, English red, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, raw umber, and ivory black. Yeah, let's pretend that was the first attempt. Okay, it's going to start getting messy, so the gloves are coming off. I'm starting with the background, so I'm whipping up a few different grays to get going. I like to mix big batches of colors I'll need, and then brush mix subtle variations into those. This saves time, and it helps keep the colors consistent throughout the painting. I do this with all the major colors I'll need for the piece, and I save the mixes in a little tray in the freezer when I'm not using them. I'm mixing huge blobs of the background bases, as these are the colors I'll be consistently reaching for throughout the entire painting. I always begin my paintings with the background. That's usually the largest area of the painting, and I find it useful to have a resolved space to place the figure in. Sometimes I use fake landscape backdrops in my work, but for this idea, I wanted to figure in a simple, neutral setting, so I used my gray seamless photo background. It's just a flat gray, but I gently mix in all the colors to replicate the very subtle color shifts that create a sense of atmosphere. It's fun looking for those color shifts in your subject. It's a bit like looking at those old school magic eye images. Look at your subject, but let your eyes go relaxed and unfocused, and you'll start to see all these beautiful colors appearing in what initially looked flat. I want this background to be subtle and smooth, so I use a big house brush to unify the color shifts and eliminate glare. As you see, this technique obliterates the edges of our shapes, but that's okay. We know what they look like. If we found them once, we can find them again. I like to paint the seamless backgrounds all in one session so it's evenly blended and doesn't come out patchy. I'm just tweaking my colors and getting the values right to replicate the fall off of light on the backdrop. I wish I worked this fast in real life. It looks absolutely frantic.
Who's that perched on your easel?
That's Chesterfield. He's my studio parakeet.
Can we talk to Chesterfield?
Yes, of course.
My name is Chesterfield. I'm from Paperchase. I've been with SJ since 2017. I live on top of SJ's easel, so my understanding of painting is all upside down. Mostly, SJ and I sing together. We sing a lot throughout the day. Well, sing is a big word. We tend to get stuck on one or two random verses and sing them on a loop. We're currently suffering through our third week of Send in the Clowns. Although at least that's a real song. I add some harmonies and we don't sound half bad. We had an unfortunate few months stuck on Walking with My Brontosaurus, an SJ original composition that was the catastrophic result of walking back from the post office with a new rubber Brontosaurus, extra giddy from drinking way too much caffeine. That was a long summer. I did my best to introduce new songs, but it took months to dislodge that Brontosaurus.
I've moved on to the emoji beach ball as it's the second largest mass in the painting. The yellows I'm using are pretty transparent, so I'll need to paint this in layers. I'm using a relatively small brush to define the outlines again and test the mixes I've made. I'm not dealing with the emoji's face just yet. This is going to be obliterated while I build up the form of the ball itself. I get asked a lot about how I developed my style, but it happened very naturally for me. I love figurative art, and I love the silliness of costumes and inflatable pool toys. Classical figurative art can have an air of seriousness about it, so I like to offset that with funny or unexpected subject matter. Pop artists like Warhol and Jeff Koons made me want to be an artist, and painters like John Singer Sargent and John William Waterhouse made me want to be a painter. I think my work is a pretty equal blend of those two influences. I'm going to leave that first pass to dry now. I love this book. It's about the dioramas in the American Museum of Natural History in New York, which are just absolutely incredible. They are part of the inspiration behind the printed landscape backgrounds I was talking about that I use in some of my paintings. The fake backgrounds are also a practical solution to my problem of how to get beautiful and interesting settings for my subjects without having to leave the studio. Look at all these artists working in three-piece suits and bow ties. Can you imagine that? How uncomfortable! I like to think it's just while the cameras are there, like some sort of armor. And then as soon as the photographers go away, these guys are back in their sweats and Hello Kitty pajamas. I'm mixing up some blues for the leotard now. They're slightly different combos, but mainly cobalt, ultramarine, and phthalo. I also throw a little alizarin and raw umber into the darker shadow mixes. When I was designing this painting, I considered more classically Grecian outfits for Atlas, togas and such, but in the end, I went for this simple gymnastics leotard. Visually recalling ancient Greece seemed like overkill, and it unnecessarily fixed her in the past. This Atlas is timeless but contemporary. Although I always try to avoid dressing my models in clothing that will immediately date them. That's why costumes work so well for me. I love painting the figure, but I don't like painting ordinary street clothes that come in and out of fashion. I would much rather paint a crab costume that was never in fashion to begin with. I want my subject matter to be recognizable and relatable, but also feel a little surreal and fantastical. A big part of that is dressing the models in things you don't generally see people wearing out in the wild. Another reason I went for the leotard was purely a visual choice. I didn't like the way the flowy fabric looked against the bright inflatable. The emoji beach ball is bold and graphic, and I wanted that to carry through into Atlas's attire. I enjoy painting faces. It's equal parts fun and challenging. You're juggling a lot when painting a face. The usual drawing, values, and color, but also the expression. People are very good at reading faces, so tiny changes to the expression can affect the entire mood of the painting. I'm starting very blocky, just nudging around the initial big shapes I found to get the head and face working as a whole. I'm also keeping an eye on her complexion, tweaking my mixes to match her skin tone. Faces in art are always captivating. I think that's because we're social creatures and find looking at other people interesting. Even 40,000 years ago, humans were creating figurative art. I think the oldest examples are some cave paintings of people and bison in Borneo. I would love to paint a bison. Well, an inflatable one, of course. I'm always on the lookout for a beautiful inflatable bison or buffalo. Yet, for some reason, they only seem to make them 15 feet tall. I'm hoping one day soon there will be a modest, life-sized inflatable bison on the market. I would be all over that. Get comfy, we're gonna be here for a while.
Chesterfield said you guys like to sing. We could provide a soundtrack?
Oh, yes, please. This is going online, so we're severely restricted by copyright laws, but we can stick to the greatest hits now in the public domain.
Running wild, lost control. Running wild, mighty bold.
Feeling gay, reckless too. Carefree mind all the time, never blue. Always going, don't know where. Always showing, I don't care. Don't love nobody. It's not worthwhile all alone. Running wild.
My name's Hector, and I've been with SJ since 2019. I'm not always dressed up as a great white. I model costumes for SJ sometimes, and this is left over from the last painting, Surprise. We had a long debate about the leotard in that painting. SJ wanted the shark to be saying, "Surprise, motherfucker," so had that printed on a leotard. But I said, SJ, you can't just be throwing motherfuckers around. That's still a very offensive term. You're going to be upsetting people. We need to find a way of saying motherfucker without actually saying motherfucker, you know? So in the end, we decided to use one asterisk in place of the U in f***er, so it would still have some punch, but not be as offensive as actually saying motherfucker. I think that's my role in SJ's studio. I'm the moral compass. Some things you just can't go around saying over and over, and motherfucker is one of them. So is
Something I do miss about London is the abundance of Starbucks. I know that can be a controversial statement, but I've always found Starbucks to be a wonderfully happy and reassuring place. Perhaps it's from my time living in New York and London. You've been out running around the city all day, it's starting to get dark and rainy, you're weary, your feet are tired. Why do you insist on wearing uncomfortable shoes? You know this is going to happen. It happens every time. Just wear sneakers. Those are fine. Then suddenly, miles from the safety of your home, you have to pee. You look up with wide, worried eyes and see a Starbucks on the corner, a glowing coffee-scented beacon of hope. Well, not the bathroom so much, but in that moment, you don't care. And then you leave, warm and safe, with a caramel latte and a restored sense that all is right in the world. You're young and alive, and anything is possible. The rest of your life will be a magical adventure. Yes, at a certain point the coffee is kicked in, and that's the caffeine talking. But it's still a wonderful ride. Speaking of rides, one of my new favorite things to do is ride all the rides at Disney World and Universal via YouTube.
Okay, so please begin by telling us your name and how long you've been with SJ. We can just start with your name. I'm sorry, does the panda talk? Oh, no, that's fine. I just assumed if the ceramic dog talks, then the panda would too.
I'm back to painting the face now. For the first couple of sessions, I work on the face as a whole, focusing on the overall shape and moving the features around in relation to one another. Once I get further along and the structure of the head is locked in, I'll focus on one piece at a time. I'll work on just one eye, then when I'm happy with it, I'll move on to the next eye. It's the same approach we use on the overall painting. General to specific. Always make sure the big shapes work first, and then start narrowing your focus to give each piece careful study and consideration. I think it's time to make those brownies we talked about earlier. I'll do it quietly so we don't disturb the me that's still trying to paint over here. Preheat oven to 180 degrees. 160 degrees for fan assisted. Stir brownie mix, melted butter and eggs in medium bowl until well blended. Mixture may be lumpy. Bonus tip from the internet. Add a teaspoon of espresso powder to the mixture. Spread evenly into the baking tray. Bake for 20 to 25 minutes or until a rounded knife inserted 5 centimeters from the edge of the tray comes out almost clean. Cool and cut into 16 pieces before eating the entire tray yourself. Any other ASMR fans here? Not the weird ones. The nice, soothing, Bob Ross style ones. He is wonderfully reassuring. There are no mistakes here, just happy accidents. Oh, Bob, I wish I could believe that. My painting approach is full of mistakes. We embrace the mistakes, though. Nothing goes down perfectly the first time. We put it down and correct the mistake. And then we correct the new mistake. And then we correct it again. And this goes on, and that is just the process of painting. Although, at a certain point, we do start to think, I have been making and correcting mistakes on the nose for 6 fluffing hours. Surely I have made all the mistakes one could possibly make, and I should be left with something that is not a mistake. And then, at last, our patience and grit is rewarded, and we have something correct that we are proud of. I'm going to do a quick second pass on the inflatable emoji. I'm still focusing on the form of the ball and ignoring the face. Right now, what's important is getting the inflatable to feel round and glowy. Painting his face at the end will be lots of fun. Everything else in the painting is soft and natural, so adding those hard outlines will really make it pop. You've made it this far. So while that dries, I'll take you guys up for a drink on our roof terrace. We're having a red wine from Gozo tonight. I don't know much about wine, but I do know that when you find something emblazoned with a golden Pegasus, there is no need for further questions. We get some stunning sunsets in Gozo. It's nice to come up here after a long day in the studio. Cheers. I'm starting to work on the legs today. What can I say about legs? 4 is the best amount of legs. 2 is a close second. I like things with 2 legs, but my favorite people tend to have 4. Tigers, dogs, rabbits, zebras, etc., etc. 6 is too many legs, and more than 6 legs is just an abomination. Centipedes? Are you kidding me? Why do you need so many legs? They can't even keep track of them all. They just run around dropping legs left and right that I'm sure end up getting stuck all over us. One day in gym class, a giant-ass spider, a Connecticut tarantula, charged at us on the badminton court. Screaming ensued, but one girl leapt to action and smashed it with her badminton racket. The impact cut 4 of the legs off, which weren't cleared away with the rest of it. They just lay there on the floor for the rest of the class like some horrible leggy landmine. I suspect that's where my fear of rogue bug legs comes from. I'm not sure what became of that girl who killed it. With those instincts, I imagine she's a decorated member of the Special Forces by now. When I was in high school, a weird guy came up to me in Starbucks while I was sketching and read my palm. Apparently, my palm told him I wasn't going to become an artist, although that was probably more of a mean comment about my drawing abilities at the time. But by far the harshest art critics ever were the middle school kids on a field trip to the Natural History Museum. I was there with my college drawing class to sketch the dinosaur skeletons, and those 12-year-olds came through and gleefully tore us all apart. That's something important you learn quickly in art school. Listen humbly to the opinions that matter, and let everything else roll peacefully off. I think a lot of the things you learn in art school are psychological as much as technical. Of course, learning how to draw accurately is important, but a big part is also learning how to work through the difficult parts and hone your focus. It's like sports. Everyone seems to recognize that sports psychology is crucial for athletes to be successful. And I think the same is very true for artists. I always think that to feel better about math and history. Oh, the hours I wasted battling to learn calculus and memorize the life cycles of all the silly King Louis. All absolutely useless. But you realize that with relentless effort, even the seemingly impossible is doable. And that very much applies to painting.
I can tell you something else important that should be taught every day in art school. Don't eat the f***ing paint. It seems like an obvious one, but I can't tell you how often I see artists covered in toxic paint holding brushes in their mouths like a bunch of labradoodles. And I'm always saying, SJ, you can't hold brushes in your mouth. That shit is toxic. You need to treat it with respect or you'll end up going batshit crazy. You know why Van Gogh cut off his ear? Because he didn't listen to his ceramic dog and he went f***ing insane. One day he was in the studio like, I have an itch in my ear. And his dog said, well, just scratch it then, Vincent. But Van Gogh said nope, and just cut the whole damn thing off. Do you see where I'm going with this? Don't absorb toxic f***ing chemicals. I mean, pardon my French, but there's just no other way to say it. One day, SJ will have me dressed up like a Disney f***ing princess or like a can of soup or something equally ridiculous, when suddenly we need to rush to the hospital. Just like that, I'm going to have a hard time explaining that I'm not the one who needs to be evaluated.
What would you like to wear to the hospital?
Something that shows I'm not the crazy one. Just a simple turtleneck. Or maybe classical robes.
Ooh, the brownies are ready. My next painting coming up is a beautiful parrot with her inflatable pirate. Chesterfield is very excited for this one. I think a common problem coming out of art school is what to paint. As a fine artist, you can paint literally anything you want, and that can be daunting. I remember even on my very first day at art college, all the students felt pressured to immediately come up with a unique and defining style. I left after 2 years, so unfortunately I don't have a satisfying conclusion to this part of the story. I moved on to the classical style ateliers, where you get fantastic technical training, but no real attention is spent on subject matter, or what you want your paintings to say after graduation. It's all casts, figures, and faces. Faces, figures, and fruit. It's quite repetitive. But I'm grateful for it. It was absolutely essential for learning how to paint the way I aspired to. But that type of tuition really leaves graduates with the challenge of what to paint after school, and searching for the magical unicorn that is your unique and defining style. I've found sometimes it can help not to think about what you like in terms of art. Just start gently looking at what you like in general. What type of movies do you enjoy watching, and consider why. Go to the magazine section of a bookstore. Which are you drawn to? Flip through those magazines. Which images catch your attention? Is it the color scheme, the subject, the composition? The fact you can paint anything is scary, but it's also liberating. It's hard for schools to teach this part because it comes down to truly knowing yourself and trusting your instincts. Art is a combination of all the things that interest you, told through your perspective and imagination. By default, this will be unique to you. It will probably be something that other people find interesting as well, which is ideally what you want. But unless you are blatantly copying an existing image, the picture you create will be something only you could have come up with. Painting is simply communication. It's not as literal as using words, so by nature it's left open to interpretation. But a painting starts because you have something you want to say. Something draws you to your chosen subject matter. You just need to visually explain why. My last piece of advice for any art students grappling with this is not to worry at all about how people will react to what you create, or what it might say about you. That's for a good psychiatrist to figure out one day. If it makes you happy, put it in. Words to live by.
Red and yellow and pink and green, orange and purple and blue. I can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow with you. There's one more minute of time to fill. SJ has no more to say, so I'll just keep singing, just keep singing, just keep singing, till the clock runs down and the script picks up again and I can ask my final question. Till then I'll just keep singing, just keep singing, just keep singing, because we want to avoid a silent interlude when there's nothing to do but watch SJ's hand paint. Like, oh my god, even SJ gets bored watching that. It's like, we get it, painting takes time, that's fine. But can we move this video along, please? This has nothing to do with social media shrinking our attention spans. This isn't a social critique. Even if you showed it to someone in the 1600s, they would lose interest after 24 seconds. And that's double the current average of 12 seconds. Although their minds would be blown by the technology, they would probably declare the iPhone a witch and throw it into the lake to see if it floats. It won't. We've all tested that by mistake in the toilet. So now they know the phone was innocent. They dive into the lake to save it, but it's too late. The phone is fucked. And they didn't opt into AppleCare. What a dark day for humanity. Jesus Christ, it's not done yet. And I've gone down a rather grim tangent. Give us a signal if we should go off and make ourselves a sandwich, and just come back later. So I'll just keep singing, just keep singing, just keep singing to you.
You said earlier that having Atlas hold the laughing emoji just made sense. Can you explain more about that?
It's hard for me to verbalize the meaning of my paintings. It's about to become painfully obvious why I am a visual artist and not someone who, uses the words. A painting's meanings also varies depending on who's looking at it. I think the most interesting art can be interpreted from many different angles. But for me, Atlas holding the laughing emoji captures a feeling. I imagine we all experience it from time to time. The pressure we feel to be happy, or seem happy, or make other people happy. So I'd say this painting is about happiness, whether it's your own or other people's. In a way, all of my paintings are about this. I paint the things that I think are fun and that bring me joy. I know different artists are inspired by different emotions, but my paintings are definitely driven by happiness. Mass-produced happiness, and perhaps a shopping addiction. What do we say when we're blue? Add to cart.
I want to be happy, but I won't be happy till I make you happy too. Life's really worth living when we are mirth giving. Why can't I give some to you? When skies are gray and you say you are blue, I'll send the sun shining through. I want to be happy, but I won't be happy till I make you happy too.
I'm walking with my brontosaurus.
Oh, please, God, no.
Walking with my brontosaurus. I'm walking with my brontosaurus, a saurus. I'm walking with my brontosaurus.